Yo, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Theory Underground. I am your host, Dave McCarricker, and today we're going to be discussing, or I will be reading from this book right here, Slavoj Žižek's For They Know Not What They Do. So I'm very excited to be here with you all. Thank you for joining me. I think there's at least one or two of you in the chat. So go ahead and say something. Let me know that it's working. If it's working, if it's not working, let me know what's not working about it so I can get it fixed, because there's always something. My God. If you looked at the start screen, I wanted to point out that there's some small text here at the bottom. It says, if you're watching this in the future, you can skip to the heart of the content by going down to the comment section and following the timestamp someone will inevitably share. If you're in the live audience, then thank you for waiting. And then it's got the big corny D smile with the hype in all caps, because I was hoping to be like, hype, like, come on, get excited with me. I'm excited. I'm excited because, I mean, my God, Slavoj Žižek has proven to be way, way, way bigger of a deal than I thought. And so this course, For They Know Not What They Do, is for his most underrated and most important theory text. What's up, Nance? Good to see you in the chat. Let me know if this is working, if everything sounds good and everything like that. I think I've corrected my audio levels a little bit to make it so that it's not blasting out the speakers, but it should sound fine, right? Let me know if it's too bassy. Let me know if it's too loud. Let me know if it's too quiet. Fuck, I don't know what I would do about that except turning it up a little bit, and then you'd hear too much of the background noise. And I've tried to put a noise gate on this microphone, but that is not gonna cut it because, well, long story short, it cutting in and out every time I click the mouse is more distracting than anything else. So this text, though, is, I said, underrated in the sense that sublime objective ideology and less than nothing take way more attention. But For They Know Not What They Do is the first time that he really lays out why his approach to Hegel through Lacan is so radically different than anyone in Hegel studies had ever thought. If it wasn't for Slavoj Žižek, I think Mikey basically said this in the conversation that we just had on the Žižek and So On podcast, which is available now, by the way. I shared that on my Instagram. I've been meaning to send out an email about that, but for the time being, I haven't sent the email out. But yeah, we were had on for like a 3-hour conversation with Michael from Žižek and So On. He had the horrendous job of having to cut that all down to an hour long. And so it's basically Mikey just spitting theory, like pure fire the whole time. And me chiming in at a couple points, Michael from Žižek and So On chiming in at a couple points. The episode that's more about Mikey's biography as well as my own, that's going to be something that's behind the patron wall. So, you know, that's the age we live in. Everyone has to do that if they want to do anything serious with this stuff. And I'm no different. Theory Underground also has stuff behind the paywall. And so having a foot public side, but also like having some goodies for the people who are invested, who have like skin in the game, who Theory Underground is like going to be a big part of their life. You know, it just makes sense and it's fair. Fair is fair. But For They Don't Know What They Do. Yeah, if it wasn't, so Mike, I was saying Mikey brought this up in the podcast. What did he bring up? He brought up the fact that without this text, Hegel would have basically, he didn't quite say it this way, I'm going to say it this way. Hegel would have basically been remembered like as some stuffy white dude with a wig, basically. I don't know if he actually had a wig or not, but that's the sort of image people would have had of him. It would have been like, oh yeah, Kant, Hegel, Spinoza, Leibniz, oh yeah, the thinkers of modernity, the thinker of grand totalities, the thinkers of idealism, the thinkers of all this stuff, these grand theorists who think that they've figured it all out for the last time. And, real philosophy starts with Marx and Heidegger. Or you could say Marx and Husserl. There's a radical break at some point, wherever you want to find it, between modern philosophy and, I don't want to say postmodern, but that is kind of what it is. Not in the usual sense that people use the term, but sure, in a more, they're not convinced that they're modern anymore, right? That's one of the things that breaks the thinkers after modernity is like, they're like, well, I'm not so sure that we had it all figured out and that we're on this teleological march to the end of history and that some philosopher is going to get the grand prize for having figured it all out. Well, yeah, Hegel would have been relegated to the stuffy old closet of dead thinkers if it wasn't for Slavoj Žižek. And, I understand that that's a controversial statement, and it's one that is worth taking seriously and at least sitting with for the duration of this text, right? Until you've read and reread it, because I'm one of the people, and I'm assuming that you all are as well, who are late to the game concerning not just Žižek's work, but also this sort of Lacanian salvaging project of Hegel. And what are we salvaging him from? Beyond just being like that old dead white guy who thinks grand totalities and the historical teleology of progress and the dialectics of synthesis and all this other bullshit. No. We're rescuing him from Jacques Derrida. That's right. This book repeatedly goes after Derrida's interpretations of Hegel, and it's a good time. It's going to be really fun. I think we're all going to have a blast here. What's up, Salamoon da Costa? We got Michael from Poland in the chat. Good to see you. Must be getting kind of late where you're at, huh? It's probably like 2 in the evening, 2 in the morning for you. Is that what's going on? But before we dive into the book, I wanted to check, how is everybody doing? Are you all aware that there's a For They Know Not What They Do course? What do you guys all know about it? What do you think about it? Has anybody... Yeah, let me know if you have read this text. Let me know if you haven't read this text. Has anyone who hasn't read this text read Less Than Nothing? Because that's also one of Žižek's great works, and that one uses a lot of Hegel. And so, that one, maybe you could go without reading For They Know Not What They Do if you read Less Than Nothing. Now, Less Than Nothing is 3 times longer. It is more fleshed out. It is more of a, he's kind of drawing off of his life's work at that point and putting it all into like 900 pages. Of course, he's not doing the work of condensing it. This is more condensed, I think. I mean, it really reads in a way more theoretically pure, distilled, condensed, succinct style than anything you get from, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like in Defense of Lost Causes, which is like, he's kind of applying the work he did in a text like this to pop culture and stuff like that, which he says the pop culture analyses, his going out into geopolitics, all of that, he says is the... he says that kind of writing is a sort of what's the term for casualty? Casualties of war. He uses that analogy of casualties of war as a sort of way of saying, it's necessary in terms of like his theory. He's got a theoretical axe to grind, and in working it out, he has to apply it to the world, to geopolitics today, to pop culture, film, literature, etc. And some people prefer that. Some people can read that stuff and get a lot more out of it than me, at least. But I can't. I really can't get a lot out of that. For me, I want the more condensed, succinct, and distilled theoretical treatment. I want to know where the arguments are. I want to actually see him take Derrida down in a sustained way. And not just Derrida, but all of these other thinkers too. And, Wittgenstein comes to mind, but there's a bunch of other ones in this text. Derrida is kind of one of the main figures because at the time of this writing, which is probably in the 80s or something, Derrida was like this up-and-coming sort of theoretical rock star, thanks to his touring of the United States. And so American Derridians, were in the process of, apparently, what I just found out recently, it was a very bad appropriation of Derrida's work, a very American, sort of utilization of Derrida's work. I don't really know. I don't know the full extent of that. All I know is that I've never met a Derridian who was interesting. Okay, I take that back. Dr. Ian Thompson of University of New Mexico is an amazing Derridian, but he's also based in Heidegger and Levinas and Nietzsche. And so, yeah, if you're just reading Derrida for deconstruction's sake, but you don't have the basis in phenomenology, you don't have the basis in Levinas, I don't give a fuck. I've been to a bunch of conferences. I've met a lot of professors, a lot of students, and all the Derridian ones. I don't know. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to meet the exception, the wonderful exceptions. I know that you're out there. If you're watching this and you're like, I love Derrida, and I've never read anything but Derrida, you might be the wonderful exception. I hope so. But I guess the reason that I have a chip on my shoulder when it comes to American Derridians, what I've seen is people slightly problematize something and then say they deconstructed it and then they move on. And that's so many conference presentations where it's like, ooh, so The Walking Dead, you've got like this fantasy of zombie apocalypse, and so now masculinity is valued again. Do you see how this is just wish fulfillment for patriarchy? Okay, interesting. But like this is put forward as like this damning deconstruction, like, ooh, like that's somehow supposed to be impactful. It's like, cool, okay. You could have done that without Derrida. And when it comes to Derrida, obviously, like he was supposed to be a very intimate reader of the people he deconstructed. And it's no fault of his own that his intimate reading of Hegel was insufficient, right? It took Žižek to come save the day. If it wasn't for Slavoj, we'd still be dealing with this dialectics of synthesis and teleological progress and all that bullshit. So Salamoon says it's only 10:50 p.m. where he's at, which is Katowice, Poland. Well, I stand corrected. And he says, I have to shamefully admit that I've never read For They Know Not What They Do. It's okay. Nothing to be ashamed of. Žižek dealing with Derrida's reading of Hegel seems kind of personal of him. Žižek had an obsessive Derrida phase and even wanted to do an interview with him the same year that Derrida died. Damn. I did not know that. Thank you for the information. Luis in the chat says, I don't know, Olenka Mladen. So many Lacanians of the same cloth who deserve credit. Okay, maybe you're right. But for the next couple months, it's just Žižek, okay? Everyone always whenever you try to actually dive into a difficult text, everyone's going to come along and be like, oh, well, you think that's important, but really there's this other text. Oh, you think that's important? Well, really there's this other text. And it's kind of like people, it's part of influencer / academic professor culture, the two things kind of gelling, where it's like, you think that if something's really worth the time to read, and you've read it, then you kind of want other people to go through the misery that you went through. You're like, oh, you're reading that? You should be reading this. I did. I've read it. And then, of course, you want to have a shared basis so you can have conversations with other people, so it's understandable. But yeah, every time that you want to pick up a heavy book, people go, oh, no, you got to read this instead. So anyway, there is no other book except for this one in the near future for me. There will be some other stuff that's being read in the private exegetical reading sessions, which are something that you can purchase on the website. You can purchase access to those private exegetical readings, which is to say, like, there's like 300 books and you know, in the sort of plan for Theory Underground, like 300 books that are sort of ones that are referred to in the discourse, or and you know, usually people haven't actually read them, they've interpassively read them through some other figure, or there's those kinds of texts that are like these forgotten gems or absolutely important interventions that never got heard or taken seriously. And so, you know, it's like, it's not the definitive canon that I've developed, but it is a sort of basis that I want to be able to have that other people can like figure out which ones they want to link up with me on. And there's basically 5 texts in the next 2 months that I will be focusing on in the exegetical reading sessions from week to week. And those happen in the morning time. So this is going to be, and I'm sorry to say, something that is beneficial mostly to people who are not working right now. There are some people who are unemployed. It will benefit them probably the most, especially if they're looking to go deeper into some texts with someone who is reading them for the second time. Because my goal will be to unpack them a little bit as we go and answer clarifying questions for folks who are there for the exegetical sessions. But as far as Slavoj Žižek's For They Don't Know What They Do goes, my goal is to read it week to week. So the For They Don't Know What They Do course begins next Saturday, not tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, but on February 25th. Okay, we just got some new signups over the last few days. Like I think 4 new people have signed up for the course. I think there's maybe like 15 people signed up so far, which is really cool. If you're looking to sign up, you go to theoryhunderground.com/courses/FTKNWTD, which is the acronym for They Know Not What They Do, because who wants to type that out every time? Not me. Louis Lewis says, of course she's a goat, which is slang these days for the greatest something. What is it, guys? In the chat, come on, help me out here. What's goat again? I don't know. I can't keep up. Salamoon says, yes, the cringeworthy gatekeeping that some academics do. Well, you know, if you dedicate your whole life to reading Aristotle, and then you've got somebody out here talking about Derrida, and that person talking Derrida thinks that Derrida figured out the solutions to the riddle of history and have deconstructed everything, including Aristotle, and you've spent your whole life reading Aristotle, then I don't blame that kind of academic gatekeeping. I don't blame the person who sacrificed their entire existence to keep alive some dead thinker getting like, you know what, you actually have to read this. I don't blame them at all. Those kinds of disputes are fair enough. I think the trap is falling under the influence of a professor or influencer who's solely dedicated to keeping alive the thought of some thinker. Now, it's not completely dangerous. It's never a dead end. It's totally worth going deep into something in your life. Otherwise, you just stay at the superficial level with all these different thinkers, and you never actually go beyond the video essay stage. You never go beyond the encyclopedia stage. You never actually get into the meat of it. And I'm a big fan of getting into the meat of it. And to get into the meat of it, you're going to have to do that under the guidance, usually, of somebody who's dedicated crazy amounts of time to it, which is, you know, it's never pointless. You can always go real deep with somebody and then go deep with others later. You know, you're not. I think people are afraid of commitment because they think there's no coming back. But the real danger that I was just alluding to is the danger of purely instrumentalized readings where everything you're doing that you're bringing to the text is trying to make the text fit this mold and serve some greater purpose that is ideological. And so if you're coming to philosophy to argue in defense of some preconceived worldview, then I would call that an instrumentalized ideological reading. And, obviously, like if you're reading it as a Christian who's just practicing apologetics, or if you are just trying to read philosophy to try to find, things to make yourself sound smarter so that you can win debates, so that you can make the left look good, or the opposite of that. Any one of these kinds of approaches, that would be a sort of instrumentalized ideological reading. And if your whole approach is defending a thinker because you fall under the sway of somebody who has spent, a lifetime defending, say, Aristotle or whatever, they're going to be able to help you see things, for sure, that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. But they'll also potentially get you to only see things in this way where I don't know. I guess that's the fear. My fear is that, you become a sort of indentured servant of some professor's, project to keep alive some dead thinker. And like, that's cool to a certain extent, but what? Then you go to grad school and you just keep going deeper and deeper into those weeds. And then like later it's 10 years later and you've only been in the wheelhouse of people who everything they do with conferences and journal publishing and everything all comes down to some niche area of quote unquote realism or, whatever, keeping alive. Yeah. Neoplatonism is an example, right? Like, which is, it's good. It's good that there's conferences for these things. I'm just saying, don't get stuck there. But it's okay also to get stuck there for a couple months. Okay. It's okay to get stuck in the Žižek world just give yourself over to it for a few months. Come along on this ride with us because the train is departing next week. Nick Wilson says, that's more or less why I avoid bringing up Žižek in academic settings. Oh yeah, thank you, Solomon DaCosta, proving how much more of a Zoomer, a hip internet literate, Zoomer literate, American he is, even though he's never been to America. It's Solomon knows the English slang better than I do. What can I say? But yeah, GOAT means greatest of all time. And then Michael says, maybe I'm too cynic or pragmatic, but I always announce to my students/listeners that I use a certain philosopher just as a tool, and I don't claim that everyone should care the same way. And considering the fact that you're teaching a lot of these social science students, I think that makes total sense. Especially in the world of sociology where sociological lenses, where the sociological imagination is taken very seriously. But I'm not saying that instrumentalization is inherently bad or that it's completely useless. In fact, it's by definition, it's useful. It's by definition using, right? That's what instrumentalization means. Your approach to the text is always purely, it's, for its use value, for a particular use value. And that's fine. There's also this thing called thinking, though. And thinking can exist outside the confines of instrumentalized reason. And in fact, instrumentalized reason should be a tool being used by thinkers. And thinkers who do not use instrumentalized reason as a tool critically become tools themselves, right? You're either using the tools or you're becoming the tool. That's That's what I say. Anyways, whatever. But yeah, I know you're not a tool though, Michael. Hey, you said a Zoomer, LOL. Michael, Zoomer, like Boomer, has nothing to do with age and everything to do with how in the loop you are. Okay. There's only 2 generations, and they're on a spectrum. And your identity as a Boomer/Zoomer is bimodal. Okay. Anyway, all right, that's enough. So welcome, everybody. I see that we've got some more people here now. So bringing it back to the thing that I was talking about earlier. So here on the screen, you see it said starting soon, and it says if you're watching this in the future, you can skip to the heart of the content by going down to the comment section and following the timestamp someone will inevitably share. Yes, and so if you're joining this right now, you're live. Okay, cool. But after the fact, someone in the listening audience, please timestamp when I actually start reading from this text so that people who are looking to get to the heart of the matter and don't want to hear all of my hot takes about academia that I've been spewing here will be able to just get to the point. Why am I doing this? I already said that I'm doing exegetical readings, but the For They Don't Know What They Do exegetical readings are for the For They Don't Know What They Do course that is starting next week on February 25th. And I would like it to make it so that a working class person who's too busy to sit down and turn the pages of a book, much less for the first time. Of course, wait, am I using that? But okay, they never get the chance to actually sit down and turn pages, right? Much less for a second time. Here I am in this privileged position. I actually can turn the pages, read it, and say, what have we done here? What ground have we covered? And I want to make that accessible for people who are too busy to do the reading. So I know for a fact that we have at least one person who's already signed up for the course who said for an absolute fact they will not be able to do the readings, but they just want access to the lectures. And that's fair enough. But I do want to make it so that if they have the ability to pop earbuds in at work, then they will be able to listen to me breaking it down to the best of my ability. Now, will I actually be able to stay true to my promise and do the whole book this way? We'll see. But I hope so. I really do. My heart's in it. We'll see how the time and energy actually pans out. But, I mean, if I don't actually do this and sit here and turn the pages and read it and talk about what's going on here as far as I can tell, if I don't do that, I will not be as well prepared to hystericize Mikey, which is my job. My one real job, besides organizing the course, building the website, etc., is to be the representative student who's interviewing our lecturer, because that's what he will be doing. We'll be lecturing. So I'm very excited about that. On the topic of lecturing, if we have time today, then we'll be getting into something related to lecturing. If we do not have time today for that, it might happen tomorrow during the Week in Review event. It's okay to go off topic, Salamoon. I am myself all over the place, as anyone should be able to tell. But what did you say? You said, I mean, personally, I cannot dig a philosopher deeply enough without walking in their shoes mentally, but nonetheless, I'm trying not to impose it on other people. I don't know. I think people get tired of not having people impose stuff on them. It's always these codgy old, professors who do it. And what we need are hip 20-something through 30-somethings saying, I see the world through this lens and it matters, and here's why, instead of this relativist, shrug. I'm just saying, if you did ever say, no, Adorno fucking matters, bro, here's why, I would be so delighted. Because this whole you read those people and I read these people, it just leaves me going, yeah, but why? Why though? I have to. I mean, if people want to know, why are my main thinkers Marx, Heidegger, Levinas, but I think that they have to be read in the order of Heidegger, Levinas, Marx. Why is that? And then how does Žižek and Lacan and Baudrillard and all these others come into play? You stick around for a couple of years, you'll know the answer. But let's see. So anyway, Lewis says, in the case of capitalist production, using the tool is being the tool. That's why I'm disheveled and unemployed. Bruh, you think that that gets you out of it? You think that makes you somehow immune to this bullshit? Adam, what's up? Good to see you. Why read Žižek? Mainly so I can wear the shirt in good faith. I know. I mean, I've had this I would prefer not to shirt. And you can see it's like falling apart now. And let's be honest, when I first got this shirt, I was not wearing it in good faith. But here we are. Okay, so let's get into it. Yes, so anyone joining For They Know Not What They Do course and watching this because they don't have time to read it themselves, maybe it's after work, you're tired, you're kicking back, you're playing Tetris or some video game, or you're scrolling your phone and you're listening to this in the background, or you're washing the dishes or changing baby diapers or driving in traffic or whatever it is that you're doing, I'm here for you. I'm going to make it accessible. Good news, for this first week, you have very little to do. It's only 3 pages. These 3 pages of For They Know Not What They Do are the introduction that you are to have read, or at least listen to me read, before Mikey's lecture on February 25th, which is the Saturday after this weekend. So, let's get to it. Introduction, Destiny of a Joke. The background of the present book is best illustrated by the well-known Soviet joke about Rabinovich, a Jew who wants to emigrate. The bureaucrat at the emigration office asks him why. Rabinovich answers, "There are 2 reasons why. The first is that I'm afraid that the communists will lose power in the Soviet Union, and the new forces will blame us Jews for the communist crimes." "But," interrupts the bureaucrat, "this is pure nonsense. The power of the communists will last forever." "Well," responds Rabinovich calmly, "that's my second reason." In The Sublime Object of Ideology, published in 1989, it was still possible to count on the efficacy of this joke, while according to the latest data, the main reason which Jews who emigrate from the Soviet Union cite is Rabinovich's first reason. They effectively fear that, with the disintegration of communism and the emergence of nationalistic forces openly advocating anti-Semitism, the blame will be again put on them, so that today we can easily imagine the reversal of the joke, with Rabinovich answering the bureaucrat's question. "There are 2 reasons why. The first is that I know that communism in Russia will last forever. Nothing will really change here, and this prospect is unbearable for me." "But," interrupts the bureaucrat, "this is pure nonsense. Communism is disintegrating all around. All those responsible for the communist crimes will be severely punished." "That's my second reason," responds Rabinovich. Retaining from the good old times the idea that the impetus of progress in socialism is self-criticism, the present book supplements the analyses of The Sublime Object of Ideology by endeavoring to articulate the theoretical apparatus which enables us to grasp the historical shift indicated by the strange destiny of the Rabinovich joke, the eruption of enjoyment in the form of the reemergence of the aggressive nationalism and racism that accompany the disintegration of actually existing socialism in Eastern Europe. Of course, he puts actually existing socialism in scare quotes because few would say that that was socialism. But the key is the sentence here. So whether you think his joke is funny or not is kind of besides the point. It's and I'm not going to sit here and do a commentary on the jokes. I feel like the working out the jokes is kind of up to you or up to the lecturer, Mikey. But I do want to highlight this right here. He says, so he's endeavoring to articulate the theoretical apparatus which enables us to grasp the historical shift indicated by the strange destiny of this joke. The eruption of enjoyment in the form of the reemergence of the aggressive nationalism and racism that accompany the disintegration of actually existing socialism in Eastern Europe. What he is saying is that with the failure of actually existing socialism, what you get is this crazy anti-Semitism. And today we have Kanye as an example, or Ye as an example, of somebody who's just gone down that rabbit hole. When people go into conspiracy theory zone, but they have been abandoned by all of the leading lights of the intellectual world, the people who are supposed to harness, feed, co-opt, honor, dignify, but equip that kind of critical light that comes from experiencing real contradictions. When a person is abandoned by the intellectuals, they're left to the conspiracy theorists. And so, yeah, without Das Kapital, all you see is overrepresentation of some ethnicity in the wealthy, and then you go from there. There's already like a rich history of this kind of conspiracy. This is what this is the context of For They Know Not What They Do. The time that he is giving the lectures that later got turned into chapters. They're not like verbatim lectures. They've been taken in their lecture form and then refined down into the chapters that they are here in this text, right? At the time that he's giving these lectures, there is a brutal rise of anti-Semitic nationalisms. And so this is what he thinks we need to be thinking about, is this book's intervention. He says, this is what the book's title aims at. Psychoanalysis is much more severe than Christianity. Ignorance is not a sufficient reason for forgiveness, since it conveys a hidden dimension of enjoyment. Where one doesn't want to know, in the blanks of one's symbolic universe, one enjoys, and there is no Father to forgive, since these blanks escape the authority of the name of the Father. See, we could have a whole lecture just on that. I'm sure Mikey's either watching this now or in the future. And so, Mikey, we'll definitely have to dig into that right there. Actually, I can highlight this. Ooh, I have a highlighting tool. Oh, that's exciting. But yeah, what is the title? Does anyone know what the title's from? Is anybody ignorant of the title? My fiance is not a cultural or like she was never like a Christian in that like hard sense, right? Like where like yeah, she grew up in a family that went to church sometimes or whatever, but she didn't grow up in a family that was like the Bible every day of your life, right? And so most religious references are over her head. And that's kind of made me more aware of the fact that, like, yeah, when you have a title like For They Know Not What They Do, a person might hear that and just go, huh, what a weird title. No, this is based on something that Jesus is supposed to have said when hanging on the cross, which was, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. He is saying psychoanalysis is much more severe than Christianity. In Christianity, there's this idea that we should be able to forgive people who just don't know what they're doing, right? But psychoanalysis shows us that where there is ignorance, a lot of times there is also enjoyment. And so what Slavoj always brings to the table is, what is the level of jouissance, enjoyment at work in any given ideology? As far as that last part, though, about the name of the Father, he says, where one doesn't want to know, in the blanks of one's symbolic universe, one enjoys, and there is no Father to forgive, since these blanks escaped the authority of the name of the Father. I can't really unpack that. I feel like to unpack that, I have to unpack the name of the Father. And I know that, Mikey, you will. And so I just kind of want to put a bookmark there so that we're all thinking about it. What is the name of the Father? The short answer is that the concept Lacan is working with comes from the fact that for thousands of years of patriarchy at a minimum, across cultures in patriarchal societies, people take on the name of the Father, which means that you don't meet me on my own terms. I don't have my own name. I have the name of my Father. So usually it's like, oh, that's so-and-so, the son of so-and-so. They're from this place, right? That's Jesus, the son of Joseph. He's from Nazareth, right? That would be the name of the Father. And obviously the Christian message is, nah, bitch, my fucking real daddy, Sky Daddy, not Joseph, not the carpenter. No way. I've got Cosmic Daddy on my side. He sent me here. I'm doing stuff in his name. But if there is no actual Father to forgive, and symbolic authority has inherent deadlocks, and the law, as well as its implicit meaning, are incapable of actually understanding the form of enjoyment unique to any given society or social grouping or ideology, then yeah, the enjoyment that Slavoj wants to point us to happens in the blanks that escape the authority of the name of the Father. I hope that works as some kind of a breakdown, y'all. Salamoon says, by the way, Dave, have you already read Alenka Zupanchik's short essay on conspiracy theories? It's fucking great. No, I haven't, actually. I really need to. I know that you and I have to do a stream eventually about conspiracy theories. I mean, hell, it would be really cool if we could do that with David from Theory and Philosophy, because he also does work in that area. So you two both have a lot to bring to the table. I just cannot stand the PMC progressive approach to dealing with conspiracy theories today, because if you listen to anything I said 15 minutes ago, whenever that was, you should be able to deduce what my issues with the discourse today are. But it would be nice to interview some people who have gone a lot deeper with such questions. Adam says, honestly, thought it a play on Nietzsche and Jesus in different ways. You know, to some degree, it might be a play on Nietzsche, but yeah, it's definitely, obviously, definitely a play off of Jesus's famous line. Purple Flush says, my ignorance is bliss. Basically, don't tell me the truth so I can continue to enjoy. Right. In a sort of sense, you know, you got to think that that's probably operative for a good handful of anti-Semites. They have a sort of willful ignorance. They want to be duped because they get an enjoyment, not just from hating or otherizing or scapegoating, but also quite potentially because they just get a hard-on from pissing people off and being a bad person, you know? I mean, who doesn't? Come on. All right. As with the sublime, and I said a lot of people, or I'm not saying everybody. As with the sublime object of ideology, the theoretical space of the present book is molded by three centers of gravity: Hegelian dialectics, Lacanian psychoanalytic theory, and contemporary criticism of ideology. These three circles form a Borremian knot. Each of them connects the other two. If you don't know what that image looks like, you can always just Google it yourself. But a Borremian knot, it's like you see, you can't disconnect any one of them without all of them coming apart. Each of them connects the other two. The place that they all encircle, the symptom in their midst, is of course the author's, and as the author hopes, also the reader's, enjoyment of what one depreciatingly calls popular culture, detective and horror movies, Hollywood melodramas. The three theoretical circles are not, however, of the same weight. It is their middle term, the theory of Jacques Lacan, which is, as Marx would say, and he quotes him, the general illumination which bathes all the other colors and modifies their particularity. The particular ether which determines the specific gravity of every being which has materialized within it. In other words, as the deconstructivists would put it, the very theoretical frame of the present book is inframed by the Lacanian part of its content. In contrast to the false anti-dogmatic spirit which maintains a critical distance towards every theoretical enunciated in order to maintain the steady and full identity of its position of enunciation, it is the author's conviction that only by unreservedly assuming a determinate theoretical position does one effectively expose oneself to possible criticism. I love this, and I would like to take a moment to say why after I address the chat. Adam said, they don't know it, but they do it anyway. Can't find the quote. Might be misremembering, misattributing. No, Adam, yeah, 100%. That's like one of the things that stuck with me as well from this text. I think there's one chapter in particular where I know that this is insufficient, that this is not real, I don't blah, 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 blah. But nevertheless, that sort of formula is crucial to the ideology critique developed in this book. We Need Critical Thinking says, you don't know something is really better until you had the better. Am I correct or incorrect? You don't know something is really better until you had the better. Am I correct or incorrect? I'm not sure what you're asking. I'm not sure if that was a question to me or if you are talking about somebody else asking the question and I'm missing the referent for that. So you can elaborate if you like in the chat. But I'm going to move back to this highlighted paragraph and touch on why I like it so much. So he says, in contrast to the false anti-dogmatic spirit which maintains a critical distance towards every theoretical enunciated in order to maintain the steady and full identity of its position of enunciation, it is the author's... Okay, what does that mean? Okay? I actually know this one. So basically he's saying there's a false anti-dogmatic spirit alive and well in the university of his time, which is to say that you get these people who are like, oh, I'm anti-dogmatic. Oh, I'm a critical thinker. I've got critical distance from all of my presuppositions. I don't, sign off on some bill of goods until I've analyzed every nook and cranny of it objectively or from some position that, presumes some kind of objectivity. This bit about this critical distance towards every theoretical enunciated in order to maintain the steady and full identity of its position of enunciation. Okay. You, in your singularity, anyone watching or listening to this, you are a singular human being. Not just an individual, but you are a singularity. Not just a particular, as opposed to the general, but you are a robust singularity. What does that mean? We'll get way more into it in this course, of course. But the point is that there is this distinction between the... how do I say it? The subject of enunciation and the enunciated subject, I think, is the distinction. But the point is that there's the thing that gets said versus the one who says it. Okay? The position of enunciation he's talking about here has to do with you, who you are saying the thing, right? And so what he's saying is, you get these people who do this anti-dogmatic thing, and they are... by putting every enunciated thing, everything that's ever been said, into this critical light, they are on the sly propping up their position of enunciation as some full identity that's uncorrupted by things like belief. He's saying, no. He's saying, I take a resolute stand. I am a Lacanian. I will see the world this way. And it helps me see things. And this helps me understand where Mikey's coming from, for instance, when he says something like, one of the problems with phenomenology and this phenomenological approach that brackets all of the assumptions that we tend to presuppose whenever we think or perceive anything or interpret. Instead of the problem that phenomenology has with this bracketing is that in a lot of cases, you actually need presuppositions, and you definitely need concepts in order to see anything at all. There is no, stripped down, pure perception of the phenomena of the world. There is only perception through concepts and presuppositions. And so this idea that, oh yeah, no, I'm anti-dogmatic. I have so you have like this full identity that takes on some Cartesian, objective, subjective like standpoint that gets outside of all the problems of language and concepts and precepts. All right, cool. Good luck with that. Slavoj says, no, he's going to do the courageous thing, which is take on a dogmatic position. And, to his credit, I think that this was not popular at the time. And also to his credit, something like jouissance as a concept or death drive as a related concept. It's one of those things that you have to take it on and think through the concepts and see the world that way for a period of time before it really unlocks things and you're actually able to start seeing it operative in the world. It's not like you can just like read a dictionary definition and be like, oh, I either do or do not like that. And you do get people in the comment sections who will be that way. Oh yeah, well, oh okay, well, jouissance, oh that's just this. Oh, that's just not whatever. That's just whatever. It's like these knee-jerk, gotta dismiss, gotta downplay. And I think downplaying and dismissing theory is actually my segue back into this next paragraph. I'll check in on the chat after this next paragraph. He says, in what precise sense, then, is the present book Lacanian? In his pragmatism, William James develops the idea, taken up again by Freud, of the three necessary stages in the acceptance of a new theory. First, it is dismissed as nonsense. Then, someone claims that the new theory, although not without its merits, ultimately just puts into new words things already said elsewhere. Finally, the new theory is recognized in its novelty. It is easy for a Lacanian to discern in this succession the three moments of logical time as articulated by Lacan. The instant of looking, I can, and he has in parentheses here, I can see immediately that this is nothing. The time for understanding, let us try to understand what the author is trying to say, that is, let us try to reduce it to what is already known. The moment for concluding, the decision to have done with hesitation and accept the new theory in its novelty in fear of being too late to attach oneself to the new doxa, which is to say, the new common sense. Now, I'm going to reread that section about logical time as the three instances, but I will not be rereading the parentheticals that are attached to those, because I feel like when it comes to listening comprehension, it's easy to get lost with parentheticals. So I'll go over it. The first is the instant of looking. Second is the time for understanding. And third is the moment for concluding. Okay, time for understanding. Oh, no. The instant of looking. Okay, you're looking at something. The time for understanding. Okay, now you're trying to figure out what you're seeing. And then the moment for concluding. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I better take on this new position or whatever. This is so funny that he's saying this, and for they know not what they do. Nowadays, everybody's a Lacanian, everybody's a Hegelian in some way, shape, or form, and it's a sexy thing to do. But the point of these texts, Sublime Object and For They Don't Know What They Do, is that they both come out at a time when these things are less than popular. I think he starts out the Sublime Object by talking about how nowadays, with the Black Book of Communism and the Black Book of Psychoanalysis, which are both two epic tome takedown treatments of these competing theoretical schools, what is to be done? Should we should we abandon them? And he says, no, hell no. Let's double down. Let's go harder. And so that's kind of his approach, is showing up after the PMC has all agreed, this is pointless, this is defunct, this is bullshit, we don't care about this. And showing up to that party and saying, well, actually, guys, you all got it wrong in the first place. Which is obviously what he'll be doing throughout this text with Hegel. But so he says that these three moments of logical time, which coincide nicely with the three moments of any theory, according to William James. He says the same three moments, of course, also determine the reception of the Lacanian theory itself. First, Lacan is simply bluffing. His so-called theory is totally worthless sophism. Second, Lacan just formulates in obscure jargon what has already been said in a much clearer way by Freud himself and others. And then third, I affirm myself to be a Lacanian for fear of being convinced by others that I am not a Lacanian. What the present book endeavors to accomplish, however, is precisely a break with this logic of recognition, its replacement with the process of cognition, of theoretical work. Lacan's theoretical apparatus is simply put to work. The book elaborates the contours of a Lacanian theory of ideology, moving step by step via ever new detours towards its main object, the status of enjoyment in ideological discourse, delaying this encounter in the same way as one delays the climactic reunion with a lady in courtly love. The accent shifts slowly from Hegel through Lacan to the present politico-ideological deadlocks. Yeah, so he'll be flirting with us throughout this text, flirting with getting to the point. But my God, if you've ever read any of his longer-winded, more political and cultural commentary type of works, then to me, honestly, it feels like he really does just get straight to the point in this text. Like, he might think that he's delaying the climactic reunion with the lady in courtly love. He might think that he's doing that in this text, but it's bearable. Ultimately, we all get laid in this text. What gives... I'll read the chat. I told you all I'd do it a paragraph ago, so I'll do it right now. Yes, Lewis, position of enunciation. I never say I am a critical thinker per se. I question myself too. In sociology, it's called physics envy. In physics, it's called objectivity. And in philosophy, it's called dogma, or dogmatic positivism. Tyler, thanks, Adam. Tyler Murphy says, it took me forever to learn to see disavowed enjoyment and how it holds groups and subjects together. Mikey helped me see that. Super grateful. 100%, Tyler. 100%. We agree on this. Mikey just caught up. Welcome to the chat, Mikey. Speak of the devil, eh? And then Adam says, Žižek flirting with getting to the point? Never. Yeah, it's like he only got better at delaying the inevitable. Mikey, I don't know if you'll be able to jump in on a call here, but I've got one paragraph left. And I would definitely just loop you in through Facebook call if you want to say hello to anybody and let anybody who's getting prepared for the course, if you want to give them any advice as far as approaching this text or anything like that. Okay, I'll read the last two paragraphs. What gives the book its specific flavor, however, is not so much its content as its place of enunciation. It conveys the text of lectures delivered in 6 consecutive Mondays in the winter semester of 1989 to 1990 in Ljubljana, Yugoslavia. Oh, come on. What kind of a word is this, you goddamn Slavs?
Ljubljana, Ljubljana, Ljubljana.
So these 6 consecutive Mondays in the winter semester of 1989 in Ljubljana, Yugoslavia.
Ljubljana,
Ljubljana. Ljubljana. It's not that hard. It just, it's the spelling of it that's hard. The word is easy enough. Ljubljana. Yeah, of course. Ljubljana. Of course. Why not? The lecture served as an introductory course to Lacan, organized by the Slovene Society for Theoretical Psychoanalysis and aimed at the benevolently neutral public of intellectuals who were the moving force of the drive for democracy. In other words, far from assuming the position of a master supposed to know, the lecturer, he's speaking of himself in the third person, acted as the analysand, which is to say the patient in psychoanalysis, addressing the analyst composed of his public. So he's playing the role of a patient, hystericizing the analyst. The lectures were delivered in the unique atmosphere of those months, a time of intense political ferment, with free elections only weeks ahead, and he put the free elections in quotes. When all options still seemed open, the time for a short-circuit blending together political activism, the highest theory of Hegel-Lacan, and unrestrained enjoyment in the lowest popular culture, a unique utopian moment which is now, after the electoral victory of the nationalist-populist coalition and the advent of a new scoundrel time, not only over, but even more and more invisible, erased from the memory like a vanishing mediator. Vanishing mediator is going to become a part of your lexicon if you read this text, because it's one of the important factors left out by most Hegelians, but it's an absolutely essential aspect of dialectical thinking. But I won't get into that right now. So what did he just say, though? So yeah, unrestrained enjoyment in the lowest popular culture. I mean, let's be honest. He hasn't done like real soap operas or unless he has. But I'd like to see him do some real telenovelas. That'd be fun. A unique utopian moment, which is now after the electoral victory of the nationalist populist coalition and the advent of the new scoundrel time, not only over, but even more and more invisible, erased from the memory like a vanishing mediator. So what he's saying is the work of this text comes out of a specific historical moment that people have already forgotten about because of the successes of the enemy. Because he is saying this as a leftist who was there to see the fall of quote-unquote actually existing socialism. They knew that there was going to be hell to pay in terms of reaction. And, that's the environment. That's the conditions under which this was produced. And, so he's saying that at the time it felt very radical and there was this sort of unique utopian moment where people were giving a fuck about theory and thinking that they stood some kind of a chance at combating this new nationalist populist coalition. But yeah, like he said, that moment is erased from the memory like a vanishing mediator. Each lecture is composed of 2 parts. Since it took 3 hours to deliver it, from 7 to 10, with a break in the middle, it was, to use an expression from cinema, a theoretical double bill. Although the lectures are now put in order, rewritten and edited with proper references and so on, there is still in them more than a trace of the chaotic circumstances of their origins. These traces have been preserved deliberately as a kind of monument to the unique moment of the Renunciation. The end. I'm going to hang out for a bit longer. I don't think Mikey's going to be able to jump in on this. He's at the coffee shop still doing some writing. This stream will go on for a little bit longer because I just want to hang out and engage with the text. I just want to hang out and engage with the chat not the text. We've already engaged with the text enough. But yeah, I just want to engage with you all a little bit before closing out. And for the people who are watching this in the future as preparation for diving in on For They Know Not What They Do, in this course, I will just say, welcome. So good to have you. This is a very short reading, and you don't really have to do much of a reflection on it. I mean, you can, and there is the ability every week of this course, or every other week in this course, because the lectures are leapfrogging week after week. So it's always the 2 weeks apart. Every lecture 2 weeks apart. But there will always be the opportunity on the in-between weeks to post your reflection on the week's reading in the forum on the website. Okay? So you got to bear with us. The forum is a work in progress. If you've signed up for the course, then you've already created your account. If you're like most people, you probably have to reset your password every time you access until you finally figure out your password, I guess, because I get notifications every day that people are resetting their passwords, and that's fine. At least you're getting on there. I'm glad to know that people are trying to get onto the website. And so the forum is definitely where you want to be posting your reflections, posting questions, giving one another encouragement. And whether you are doing this live as the course unfolds with us, or if you're doing it in the future after it's already been done, but you're taking it after the fact and you're getting special access to a bunch of the stuff behind the scenes, think about doing an intro post. The introduction post on the forum is not the same thing as the first week reading reflection. The first week reading reflection will be on a thread called First Week Reading Reflections. But the introduction post is where you let us know a little bit about yourself. You don't have to say much. 250 words should suffice. Some people spend that entire 250 words saying that they don't like to talk, and they try to remain largely anonymous, and so that this is difficult for them. I see at least one of you who said that in the chat right now. But that's a lot of people, especially people attracted to theory, who are like, what do I have to fucking say? I haven't read these texts long enough. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. I'm not looking to take big risks online. I've seen what these people can do. No, don't worry about it. Okay? Just, share a little bit about your interests, what brought you to philosophy or theory, how you got into it. Was it in high school? Was it in college? Was it way after college? Was it when you retired? Was it in jail? Was it, if you were a dropout, GED kind of graduate like myself or like Mikey, then how long until you decided to stop being a fuck up and get serious about thinking, until you decided, I want to be smart? What the hell? I'm going to try to think for myself. Fuck. Let us know. If you've always been a rock star and you just kick ass and you love theory and you've always been good at it, let us know. I mean, the intro post is, I think, underrated. I think people are too quick to dismiss it as irrelevant or unimportant because if you've ever been to college, then you probably had to do an intro post and blah, blah, blah. But there's a difference between you in that situation and you in this situation. And the difference comes down to the fact that you are choosing to be here. And there's no credit that you're going to get for being here. None. Okay, you could say that there's street credit. You get some street. I'll give you a little street credit for being here. But no, we don't get, this is not accredited. It's street credited. There's no degree. I don't even think you could put this on your CV. Maybe, but you're here because you want to understand. You're here because you want to be around other people who are passionate about understanding. And I'm excited that that's true. And I'm excited that you're here. All right. That's my message to the people who are joining this in the future, who are trying to just do their homework for this week's whatever. I hate to even call it homework, but For the people who are super busy with their jobs, who weren't able to join and do the reading themselves, this has hopefully made it so that you were able to do that. All right, but now that that's all been said, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to run and get some water and refresh myself. While I am doing that, I'm going to play a commercial. Enjoy.
Welcome. What you saw here was a bunch of clips of excerpts from a couple of reading sessions that were done as a part of the Essential Texts live exegetical readings with Dave. Those are not live on YouTube, but they are done live on Zoom. And if you want to be able to participate, we'd love to have you. This is a quick little infomercial about what's being offered. Do you want to read, but you find that you're too distracted? Is that why you find yourself listening to things like this? Do you wish that you could focus in the mornings and have a more structured reading regimen so that you would be able to develop yourself to have a basis in a variety of fields, from political and social theory to continental philosophy and theory more broadly? Perhaps you find that while trying to do that, what's actually happening is you're constantly getting distracted or getting neurotically caught up in questioning whether you're even reading it correctly or not. And yeah, maybe you could benefit from having morning sessions with me. Every one of the courses being offered from Theory Underground is going to have an accompanied live exegetical reading component that you could attend in the mornings through Zoom calls. If you're someone who either has a lot of time on their hands and is playing video games, working out, skateboarding, or perhaps doing some kind of wage labor that allows you to listen to things, this is an opportunity to basically read these texts, but with a guide. Someone who's already been over the territory before. This can drastically accelerate your own development, but also your own reading habits. Essential Texts with Dave in the Morning is something that I've been planning and developing for a while now, but I've only been doing it for a few weeks, and it's been a really good time. It's one of those things where I stop and have a side conversation to make sure that we've been making sense of the text up until that point, and then I'll summarize where we're at and then keep going. And that kind of interaction with other people while reading a text aloud takes it out of the isolation and sort of the self-referentiality and confusion of just doing things by yourself sometimes, especially if you are newer to texts like these. So I will be reading a variety of texts from political and social theory, as well as stuff like fundamental ontology with Martin Heidegger and Levinas and Das Kapital by Marx. So there's going to be a lot of different texts, kind of depending on what it is that we are doing in the courses. You don't have to sign up for the course to get access to Essential Texts with Dave. All you have to do is become a 1/10 of the cost of the means of production for Theory Underground patron, or a $50 a month patron. Either of those two tiers of patronage will get you access to the live exegetical readings of Essential Texts with me. On the other side, if you're not able to join these conversations live, you can pay for the backlog of all of my live exegetical readings, which are not publicly accessible. This video that you saw here was only the tip of the iceberg.
I'm back. Hopefully y'all didn't have to wait too long for me to come back, but I'm back. Welcome everybody. Was that cool or what? A commercial. I got to have a commercial break. Got to run, go pee, get water, talk to my partner, did the whole thing, and got to do it while saying what I don't want to keep saying. Like, that's the nice thing about, it's like, I can just do it once and then it just keeps doing it for me, you know? And then eventually everybody will get the message and be like, oh yeah, that's a thing. Now we know about the exegetical readings. Cool, thanks, Dave. You're welcome. All right, so what's up, chat? So yeah, Mikey had said, I'm at the coffee shop right now and it's freezing outside, so I can't really talk at the moment. Maybe later. The comment before that was a compliment, so I'll make sure to read that. He said, this is better without me. Keep doing what you're doing for now. Thanks, homie. I love that Mikey actually double speed listened to this the whole way through just to catch up to where we were at the time, which was on the second to last paragraph of the introduction. Lois. I've said your name so many different ways already in this chat, like probably 4 different ways. Says, I've heard it repeated that this book especially shows how Hegelianism dominates Slavoj's views, but in this foreword, he points to Lacan as the quilting point of the triad informing this work. Thoughts? Yeah, it is. It is true that this is the Hegelian work as opposed to Sublime Object, which is way more the Lacanian work as far as his first major works. And so, but I like what Adam said. Adam said, quilting point, vanishing mediator, seems similar to me. Furthermore, just learned this word yesterday, which seems to be synonymous in spirit, ratiocination, which is what, Deleuze? I wouldn't, so, you know, I would trust Mikey maybe to break down the ways that these terms might be similar, but the reason I would trust him to do it is because he could also break down how they're different. Pointing out similarities is the easy thing when it comes to theory. The easiest thing to do is to point out similarities between thinkers. The hardest thing to do is to show contradictions that are irreconcilable and need to be sat with, tarried with, as Hegel would say. And I think that you're right, though, that quilting point and vanishing mediator have a role to play here in, for they know not what they do, when talking about Lacan. And it's kind of like you see, like if you already know what to look for, then Lacan's there on every page. And he's there actually on some pages. But this whole Lacanian approach to Hegel, now that's he doesn't always spell it out that it's Lacanian. He just says it in the introduction. It's there every step of the way. So in that sense, you could say that Lacan is a sort of vanishing mediator, right? Lacan is in the background whenever we're looking at whatever's going on in the foreground. As far as a quilting point, though, the quilting point and the vanishing mediator are not the same thing, but I see why they're similar to you. The quilting point is something that changes the meaning of something else after the fact. So, you know, and the metaphor being drawn off of here is like a quilting cushion, like with the, or like you're like making like this. Like if this cushion had a button, right? The function of that button is that all of the threads holding the whole thing together kept going through that point, right? And language, meaning, interpretation, you know, the basic human stuff that you can't do purely with physics or mathematics, but actually it's a thing of language. is inherently retroactive or retroversive. Those are two ways of saying the same thing, which is to say that the meaning is always a process, and that in a lot of cases it's some new information comes later that quilts everything different that has led up to that point. The example from Molly Ann Rothenberg's book on The Excessive Subject is, like he stroked her chin, right? He stroked her chin, or he stroked the line of her jaw. He softly stroked the line of her jaw, right? Now, if you read, he softly stroked the line of her jaw, you're going, oh, okay. But then here comes the other part of the sentence that quilts that different with the sharp edge of a knife, right? Oh, okay. Well, we thought that it was romantic, but now it's getting kind of sketch, right? Well, that could have been quilted another way. Could have been with his hand, with his fingers, with his whatever. So, with his whatever. But, however it's quilted, though, defines, in a sort of sense, how we understand or make sense of the meaning of what's going on. And so, I think in this case, maybe Lacan's a lot more the vanishing mediator than the quilting point. But of course, there will be quilting operations throughout this text. And so now I'm going to actually read, I think Mikey got into the chat. We're going to see what he said. And I will give you a live reaction. After listening to this, I've decided to not directly teach the For They Don't Know What They Do course. Instead, I'm going to make you the big other through whom I can interpassively teach the course. You teach it for me. God fucking damn it. Well, here's the thing. I will not always be streaming my exegetical readings, and I'm sure that you're going to disagree with me, or you're going to be able to clarify and expand on all kinds of things that I'm not able to touch on. So, but hell, I would really love to be able to teach this eventually, absolutely. If you can whip me up into shape, if you can train me to be the kind of person who could eventually teach this myself, then you will know that you've succeeded. Like, get your passé or whatever. Fuck yeah. Okay. And I have to say, everybody who's watching this right now, if you're watching this, presumably you're interested in knowing what the fuck we're talking about. You're interested in having a basis in the world of theory, whether you turn out to be a Žižekian someday or not. This is something through which you should pass if you are interested in holding conversations with people who are involved in this kind of stuff. If you want to be able to have like that shared textual basis, then this is worth spending some time on. All right. And to that end, there is an intro to Lacan series that Mikey and I have put out, where I am basically the student and he's the teacher, but it's a dialogue. And so yeah, it's called Lacan 101. And then there's another one called Žižek 101. And there's a new episode of that coming out every day. And then the new episodes are going to keep coming out on this channel every day until there's like 35 or 40 fucking episodes up. I don't know how many there will be, but it's going to be a lot. And the point is I took like 9 hours of these long form interview lectures and broke them down into small chunks that you could do 1 or 2 a day pretty easily without giving up a huge part of your life. Or you could binge all of them while working at Amazon. Either way. Adam says, so I have a probably basic ass question, but I can't find the answer to this anywhere. Is there a way to concierge of psychoanalysis, F or L variety, Freud or Lacanian variety, that doesn't reduce everything to sexuality? It's as if asexuality means having no drive whatsoever, which I can report is decidedly untrue. So, asexuality is not a term that is operative in the original theory of either Freud or Lacan. And it would be pretty easy to say, oh yeah, well, they just weren't aware of it. And so, this is one of the modern innovations that we have with the criteria people use to make sense of their experiences today. And that would be all fair, fine, and dandy. But two things. In a sort of sense, everything is not reducible to sexuality for Lacan, and arguably not for Freud. But at the exact same time, it is. It's just that we have to redefine our terms, because what you and I mean, Adam, by sexuality is not what they mean. And so that is why we have to read Alenka Zupanchik's book, What is Sex? Which is, I can't tell you a whole lot about it because it's still in the works, but stay tuned because there will be a short course on that text coming here with Theory Underground very soon. Okay, so without getting too deep into it, she has to spend this whole book basically being like, so yeah, for Freud and especially for Lacan, sex is not any of the things that people tend to think of it, neither is sexuality. And so what you have is Foucauldians and Lacanians and Derridians are all speaking past each other. And so she clarifies the terms. She uses a lot of source material to really lay out her case. And it's very important. Alenka Zupančik is fucking awesome. She's one of the Slovenian circle. Slavoj Žižek is the most visible because he's the most charismatic, outgoing, puts himself out there, whatever. But behind the scenes, his most important fellow travelers in the Slovenian circle, she's one of them without a doubt. And the What is Sex book is one of the greatest short works of philosophy and theory in this domain to date. And so we will be getting into it. But anyway, okay. For the time being, yes, there are psychoanalysts who don't reduce things to sexuality. And so a really good example of that would be, I think Otto Rank bases everything in death anxiety, which is really fucking cool if you are influenced by being in time. Because it's like, oh shit, whoa, wow, yeah. Okay, so everything's not just repressed sexuality being sublimated into other, modes of expression or ways of acting out. The problem with Otto Rank is that he didn't read Alenka Zupančik. And so, it's a way of correcting things that helps us see things and get at something. Totally. But I just think that if we're going to be talking about sex in the Lacanian register, then we're going to have to give the devil his due. And so what I would first do before seeking out a theory that can make sense of asexuality for you is step back and go, okay, but how might the way I'm using this word be different from the way that they're using this word? Because the people who develop the term asexuality, generally speaking, they don't have a basis in this theory. And so there's a variety of ways that asexuality can be accounted for through a Lacanian theory. So, yeah, you have drive. And the fact is your drive has developed in the way that it has developed. So you have a lot of different ways of getting your jouissance. And sex is not one of them, right? You might be able to experience some pleasure sexually. We could all, there's a million, you could think of lots of different examples. A person could be like, yeah, well, I don't really get horny, but yeah, I guess if I was intimate with somebody and we were close, then I'm sure it would be pleasurable to touch each other. Sure, Yeah, okay. I mean, speaking for my friends who are asexual, I can't speak to your own experience or anything like that, but that's often a part of it, right? But You could also go to an extreme case where you go, not only do I not have any drive towards sex, but I also have no pleasure from sex. I am disgusted by sex, or I am bored by sex, or I am whatever. All of these would be, these all work within Lacanian theory. And I know that Mikey and Cadell are going to have a lot to add to it, but I think I'll probably just leave it at that. Cool. All right. But, hey, we should do a stream about that soon. I'm hoping to. But look, if you all don't learn what sex is in the Lacanian sense this year, then let me know. We'll make sure it happens. But I think there's probably something coming up in the next month and a half here where we'll talk about it on a stream. Okay? Lewis says, to Adam, Žižek's point via Lacan is that the attempt to reform rigid, culturally, social, sexual, etc. norms does not simply lead to a zero level of pure experience, and that the dominant form of ideology today posits itself as holding the view of pure objectivity despite masking forms of old domination. Sorry, I wrote a longer comment, but YouTube ate it up, so I kind of improvised that. Yeah, sorry about YouTube bots eating up your well thought out comments. Oh, Adam did not mean to say concierge. I was wondering what the fuck you were saying. I'm going to reread that now that I know that you were trying to say conceive of. So I have a probably basic ass question, but I can't find the answer to this anywhere. Is there a way to conceive of psychoanalysis in the Freudian or Lacanian variety that doesn't reduce everything to sexuality? And of course, my answer was well, we have to talk about what we mean by is. Tyler Murphy says, good work. Gotta go work out in front of some mirrors. Hell yeah, Tyler. Go get your workout on. I did my workout right before this stream. I did. It was leg day. I'm not going to act like I've been good about my workouts, though. I think I fell off of working out for like a week and a half. So much so that the lady at the gym, in her Spanish, we don't actually know what she said, but it was something along the lines of, oh, wow, it's been a while. And we were like, yeah. Mucho... how do we say it? Mucho tempo? Something like that. But it meant like, yeah, a lot of time. Tiempo? Something like that. I forget. Anne knows Spanish better than me. I'm working on it. Anyway, Lewis says, oh yeah, you're on mobile. It sucks. Yeah, especially when your comment gets eaten up like that. Mostly bored of everyone else's sexuality, to be honest. Bored of everyone else's? Well, yeah, I mean, I'm asexual then, fuck. But, I'm just kidding. But no, for real. Like, I get it, but also like, come on. Pornography has made real sex boring for millions of people. And I'm not saying that that's what happened to you, but I'm just saying that doesn't mean that in terms of theory, sex doesn't have like a prominent or fundamental role to play. So let's get something going here. So does anybody remember when I used to do Duolingo on stream? I'm actually going to do my Duolingo right now because might as well. So
Una cena con la familia.
For anybody unaware, Duolingo is free with ads, and it's one of the few best language learning apps. I say few best. There's a few. I'm not saying that Babbel's necessarily worse than Duolingo. I'm not saying that Rosetta Stone is not worth your time, but I am a Duolingo person. And there's I mean, I went to the Duolingo conference. Now, it was online, but I still went. And the things that they're doing that are breaking out of the kind of memorization games that Rosetta Stone used to play. And I say used to because I don't really know how much Rosetta Stone might have adapted. It's innovative what Duolingo is doing. And I love the way that they've gamified language learning. If it wasn't for Duolingo, then I would not have been able to hold a conversation with somebody in Meeskirk, Germany, in German. But I did. I met a lady named Sylvie at the bus stop. She spoke barely any English. Like really, it was like barely any. I might have spoke more German than she spoke English, though she was able to probably understand me a little bit more than I could understand her. But we were able to communicate for like 2 hours because we hung out at the bus stop and then we rode the bus. And so maybe it was an hour, maybe 2 hours, but it felt like a long time of like a rewarding conversation. And we wouldn't have had that conversation had I not done a couple years of German. And really, I was usually doing like 5 minutes a day. So that kind of made me a believer in Duolingo and the gamification of language learning. And obviously now I am in Mexico, and so Espanol is the one I'm doing. Una cena con la familia.
Una cena con la familia.
Cena, I said. Okay, so something with the family. Is it dinner? Yeah, a dinner with the family, or a family dinner.
Lynn está en la casa de Bea. Ella va a la cocina.
I wonder if anyone has learned a language purely from Duo. I think you would have to practice with other people still and be immersed in it for the stuff on Duolingo to ever really click. I'm not really sure that you can just learn a language without, reading the books and trying to write it on yourself and communicating with people throughout life. And obviously there's different levels. Like there's the reading and writing level. And then there's like the knowing how to go around town and say, lo siento, mi no hablo español muy bien. Yo quiero tres tacos. Right? Like, okay, what did I just, I was able to say some things. I was able to, and they would understand what I was saying. And then I could say what my name is and ask them what their name is. And then I could say it was nice to meet them. And I could say please and thank you. I learned that technically on Duolingo, but it only really started clicking once I was in real situations where I cared about not offending another person, where I cared about getting to know that person's, like, I want to know their name. I want to order some tacos. Like, you have to have some actual investment and sort of social skin in the game. Like the capacity to be embarrassed and caring about being, caring about like getting to know another person where there is a language barrier. Like that, if you don't give a fuck about getting to know real actual people who speak a different language, or trying to, which is kind of an equivalent of that, which is to say, learning how to read some specific text that is in a different language. I don't know if it's going to really click. Like one of my lifelong bucket list kind of goals is to be able to read 100 Years of Solitude by Marquez. I've read it in its translation, but I want to be able to read it in Spanish. And instead, Anne and I, before bed tonight, are going to be reading the Spanish version of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Because that's the level we're at. Anyway, all right, so family dinner.
Lynn está en la casa de Bea. Ella va a la cocina.
I don't know what Lynn is, but it's a person. Lynn is at Beau's house. Yeah. And I think she's in the kitchen. Yeah. She goes to the kitchen. See, this is introducing stuff I'm not familiar with. Like, I didn't know that a means to.
Ella ve mucha comida y 4 botellas de vino sobre la mesa.
Ella ve mucha comida y 4 botellas, or was it botellas?
Ella ve mucha comida y 4 botellas de vino sobre la mesa.
4 botellas. So like, what is that? 4 bottles of wine. So she brings 4 bottles of wine. She puts 4 on the table. Oh, she sees 4 on the table. Okay, this is painful, I'm sure. But anyway.
Wow, hay mucha comida aquí.
¿Hay mucha comida aquí? Okay, now I know that wow is a word in Espanol.
Sí, mi familia va a venir a cenar.
Yeah, okay. I can tell that where Duolingo is taking me, they want me to start learning what va as opposed to, what was the other word here? Well, that's one of, V. V and va. I don't know those. V sees, va goes. Okay, so it's just like a kind of verb thing. Viva. Si mi familia va, which would be sees, or no, is coming to dinner. All right. Bo's family is coming to her house for breakfast. No, that's wrong.
Ah, ¿me puedo comer un poco de pastel?
Ah, ¿me puedo comer un poco de pastel?
Ah, ¿me puedo comer un poco de pastel?
Normally, it's not the story mode on Duolingo, so, sorry. I can eat some cake.
No,
Pero tienes 3 pasteles.
What? I don't understand what's going on here. Okay. I can eat some cake. Okay, so this person wants to eat some cake. Other person's like, no. And then, pero, I don't know. This is all way ahead of
yo
my
necesito
level right
3
now.
pasteles.
Bueno, ¿me puedo beber un vaso de vino?
No,
Tienes 4 botellas de vino.
yo necesito todo ese vino.
Yo necesito todo ese vino. Okay, I learned todo recently, but I forgot what it is. So what is that? Oh, it's all? All that wine. I need all that wine, is what she's saying.
¿Puedo comer un poco de pizza?
I can eat some pizza?
No, Lynn.
Está bien. ¿A qué hora es la cena con tu familia?
Oh, so basically, I think she wants her to wait for the family to come. And she's like, well, when are they coming, Lynn? Está bien is just like, okay, which is good to know because I end up saying okay all the time. And I'm saying it to people who primarily speak Spanish and they're looking at me like, you fucking idiot. Or I'll be like, ¿qué? Which just means what in Spanish. So it's like, I'm trying to break that habit.
Ah, la cena con mi familia es la próxima semana.
The dinner with my family is what is that, like next week? Yeah, next week.
Todo esto es para mí. Todo esto es para mí.
Is that toda es esto?
Todo esto es para mí.
No, it's esto es para mí.
¿Qué?
¿Qué?
Tengo una familia muy difícil. Estoy nerviosa.
Yeah, this poor person has a very difficult family and is nervous.
Necesito toda esta comida y todo el vino ahora.
Which I think Aurora means now, I think. So I need something, this food. Anyway, I hope that everyone's encouraged by the fact that I'm just stumbling my way through this. I have no idea what's going on, and I will probably forget everything I learned here. But the point is to train my unconscious, and my unconscious will not learn language without being confused, without my conscious egoic self being confused, and probably making a fool of myself. So if you can't take the risk of making a fool of yourself and being confused, your unconscious will not kick into gear and then try to figure it out while you're sleeping. So you got to kick that bitch into motion. Come on, unconscious, come on. Come on, get to work. Which is why you all watch my content, of course. Probably not for the Spanish, but, for theory. Anyway, Bo has a very difficult family, so she's giving the food to Lynn instead. She needs all the food and wine for herself. Yeah, that's what's going on. I thought she was saving it for her family next week because she needed all the food and wine for her very difficult family. But apparently, she just doesn't have much money to spend on food and wine, and this is her special little collection of food and wine. And her friend's over here trying to drink and eat it all. And she's like, no, get the fuck out of here. I got to deal with my crazy ass family. Okay. Cochina, tres. What's the word for next? Oh, proxima. Nerviosa. Pasteles is cakes. All right. I did it, everybody. I did my daily duo. And oh, look, I missed a day on this week, but you get streak freezes. And so I've got a 298-day streak, everybody. Oop, I just moved up into the Ruby League. That's cool. And I guess the last thing I'll say about Duolingo before I move on from this is that Duolingo is something that if you actually sign up for it, using the link I recommend, then I get like free premium. Now I'm on a family plan, so actually it doesn't make much of a difference to me, but I will still share the link because Salamoon DaCosta, who's been in the chat today, as well as Nance, have both been on Duolingo ever since last year this time when I first started streaming and doing Duolingo sometimes. So look, a bunch of people might want streamers to primarily be engaged in drama mongering and dropping hot takes and serving up hot confirmation to all of their presuppositions. And of course, you'll get a little bit of that here with me, but you're also going to get me stumbling my way through Spanish lessons and shit like that because I just think it should be normalized to hang out and do your Duolingo. We all need to do our Duolingo. If you have something else that you do instead, then go do that. But I love the fact that I've probably gotten at least 10 people from this channel to sign up to do Duolingo. And if you have no specific language that you've always wanted to learn, then try them all out. Just do the first couple lessons of all of them until you find one that's really fun. I've tried out 22, 23, 24 languages. Yeah, it's like, so wait, this would be 26. I've tried out 26. And I can say that for now, I'm for sure prioritizing Spanish, German, and then hopefully Polish. And that's the priorities for now. Cool. All right. I'm going to read the chat and then close. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, everybody. You know, this is what happens when you try to stream, I guess, in a place was gonna say a place like here, but really, I mean, fuck, I've run into this problem with streaming everywhere I've ever been. I think everywhere's like, oh, we have such fast internet. Yeah, if you're trying to watch YouTube videos, I guess. As soon as you're trying to stream, it gets cut out. But for the people watching in the future, thank you so much for, being here, for watching this far. What are you doing with your life? Why are you even watching this still? Probably because you're playing a game and you don't have time to push pause and like change a channel, or you're changing diapers or whatever. So, thank you for listening this far, and appreciate it, everybody. I've shared the link to Duolingo if you want to get on there. I don't get anything from you joining, except that if you follow me on there, I will encourage you and you can encourage me. We can all celebrate and high five each other because, hey, we're learning languages. And that means we're not dumb Americans. That's our street cred. It's our way out. But also, more importantly, on a real note, it gives you a little bit of a basis. Even if you just do Duolingo at the bare minimum per day, just to keep your streak alive and just to get the little points and play the gamified version of language acquisition, the wonderful thing that comes from it is that you get to, at the end of the day, say something to someone who speaks a different language. Where there is a language barrier, you can at least say that you tried. And my favorite example of that was my nephew. After he had been doing Duolingo Spanish only for a few days, when he was at the grocery store, and he was like a 3-year-old at the time. Okay, so he was just a 3-year-old who was really good at playing games. And so when he was playing Duolingo, he learned some things. And so he called out to some Hispanic person at the grocery store who had like a child and they were speaking Spanish. He heard it, he knew what they were speaking, and he said, "Hola!" Or I think that might have been like the second week when that happened. The first week, I think he might have said something that was Spanish that didn't really make sense to say in passing. But he said something he had learned in Spanish. And you know what? I guarantee you those people were like, oh my God. And they were touched by it because when you do not primarily speak English, it is always a breath of fresh air to see some native English speaker giving a shit and trying. So, talk about cheap street cred just for fucking trying. With that, everybody, I'm going to close this thing out. I'm going to play the countrywide tour commercial, and I will see you all hopefully tomorrow for the week in review stream. Take care.
In an attempt to bring in new people to the world of philosophy and theory while building on relationships already established, we are doing a countrywide tour of the United States this fall.
What's up, guys? It's Ann and
Are we coming
Dave.
to a city or town near you? Do you think there is a venue or audience in your local region that would be interested in a lecture or facilitated discussion about existentialism, critiques of therapism, PMC ideology, self-help, introduction to philosophy, or the time-energy critique of any of those things? This speaking and discussion facilitation tour will include the Pacific Northwest in mid-August, the Kansas City, Missouri area late August or early September, Philadelphia at the beginning of October, and really we're going to be all over the area there, hopefully, so get in contact with us if you think that we should come visit your state. Phoenix, Arizona, mid-October, and SoCal, especially San Diego, late October. I say especially San Diego because we already have our guide for the San Diego region. What's the difference between a host, a guide, and a volunteer, you ask? Well, thanks for asking, actually. The volunteer role is for people who want to put up posters or in other ways promote the events that will be occurring in their town or city, whereas the host might have a guest bedroom, guest house, or a place that we can park our van so that we can sleep in our van. We need to know if you would have like bathroom facilities or anything like that, and so the form on the website is where you can tell us what you have to offer, Guiding, on the other hand, though, people who love to guide take a lot of pride in their local knowledge. A good example of that would be Michael Downs when I visited him in Raytown, Missouri, and he took me into Kansas City and we had barbecue, and he took me to the mall and to all these other landmark places from his life growing up there. But a more recent example would be my friend Michael in Poland, who took us around Katowice, Poland, and basically gives a historical and sociological analysis of everything, and it was amazing. It was one of the coolest things we've ever experienced, and it made us realize some people just want to provide the space and privacy, whereas other people want to take you out and show you around. And so if you're interested in being a volunteer, host, or guide, we have a special form for that. So please fill out your information and get in contact with us as soon as possible so we can fit you into the schedule, because we'll love to meet you, touch base with the local community. And if you don't think anyone else in your area is interested in the things that you're interested in, if you don't think anyone else is into this stuff, well, we might be able to surprise you.
When I saw that poster, Boulder Art in Boise, fucking Idaho, are you kidding me? It was virtually an answer to an unspoken prayer, you know, it really was. And I just couldn't believe that somebody was interested in the things that I was interested in, that I had been interested in for years and had kind of given up on in futility. I'd labored in solitude for so long. I had no one to talk to about it, no one to bounce ideas off.
This tour is going to bring together a lot of people who want to be based in text with the people they're in conversation with. And yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic year. The only other thing that I want to say is that Michael Downs' first book is going to be published by Theory Underground really soon here. I've got another book coming out really soon here. These books will be spread throughout the United States on this tour. So I'm hoping to be able to do some actual book launch events at various bookstores. Outside of that, I guess the last thing that I would say is that Michael Downs is gearing up to teach For They Know Not What They Do by Slavoj Žižek. We're putting out all these introduction videos and other interviews related to the topic of Hegel, Lacan, Žižek, because we want to give people an accessible and sturdy basis in the discourse. The problem is that Michael Downs is very busy having to work at a wage slave job. And so if you want to help in freeing Mikey, make sure to go to his Patreon at patreon.com/thedangerousbaby and make a donation. Thank you. I would be remiss to close this out without a quick shout out to our patrons and our anonymous donors. Thank you so much for the donations already. We've only been around for a month. We already got over $3,000 in donations, and so thank you. And stay tuned for the app, which is on its way. There will be a Theory Underground app. So the current setup is that it is a social media site built around courses, where you can suppose that people who are involved in the discussions have a shared interest in the same or similar texts, and where you can assume in a lot of the discussions that, yeah, people have read the stuff that you're reading, that you're bringing into dialogue. And so, for instance, The Idea of the University by Carl Jaspers, dedicated for him. Slavoj Žižek's For They Know Not What They Do, dedicated for him. And then as people take the course over the years, new people will be coming into that forum. And so if you get in there early, you'll be able to see how the conversation evolves. And as new people add into the conversation, it'll bring back memories and like things that you want to work through, questions that you had with the first time that you read the text. And so I'm really excited for this. The reason I've built this website is because I think that this is what's lacking in so many other spaces, is that ability to return, to be able to communicate after the fact and in a sustained way on a platform that's not attention grabby and annoying like Discord. And so stay tuned, because there is an app on the way. Thank you to our donors. If you want to donate, go to theory-underground.com/support. Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Thank you for watching that ad to the end. You're amazing. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And you see Anna in the background here. We're ready to go. We're going to go to a language exchange group. I'm going to go eat some street tacos. We're very excited. So